You have to move again because Samatullah can't see. Unless somebody's going to help her move.
What you need, Shaykh?
Samatullah, you have to move it for her. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa sallallahu wa sallam ala rasulillah wa alihi wa sahbihi wa man ittaqa. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Again, I do not want to hear the young boys over the grown men. Okay? We have to get back the dignity that we're supposed to have in the shuja'a, the muru'a that we're supposed to have as men, and that comes with these classes, inshallah ta'ala. So, I told you guys last week that this is not a lecture, this is a class. And as a class, what happens in classes, you get tests, surprise quizzes, because I want you to learn. And we won't learn unless you get tested. Okay, what happened in the last 10, 15 years, we had a bunch of people who put themselves up as tulab al-ilm, talib al-ilm, dig the term, students of knowledge, students of scholars. But they were not connected to any scholar that knew them. So you watch on the internet, you see a Shaykh, that's my scholar, but he doesn't know you. And then they give themselves certification of graduation, but they never took a test. So we call this Taubah Hakim. Taubah Hakim is the type of person who wasn't patient for his teacher. So he went and bought the book, studied on his own, read tapes, and then came back and said, okay, now I'm ready to teach. But he got everything wrong. He starts making a lot of mistakes. So we're going to break that mold and come back with the original mold that you can't be a talib without a teacher, right? Without a mu'allim to take you along the way. And in that course, step by step, we will test your jaw. We will consistently test you. This is called regurgitation. You memorize, you repeat it. We expect you to get it wrong. Getting something wrong, making a mistake is the path towards success. Okay? Because at least the next time you do it, you won't be as intimidated as you was the first time you had to do it. And little by little, shwaya, shwaya, how many steps did you take to get to this masjid right here from your car? Anybody count them? But each one of them, the normative step is a full 30-inch step. Is that a long step?
No.
Okay, it's not a long step. But we took so many of them, and this is what knowledge is like. And I want us to talk about this for just a second so we can understand. Al-ilmu bit-ta'allum. We heard this narration. Knowledge is by ta'allum. That is dissimilar like takallum. Takallum means to speak. What does it mean to speak? Somebody? The babies. Here's the only one with her hand up.
Communicate.
Okay, communicate. But what do you do when you communicate? How are you speaking? You start off with one letter and one vowel, and you put that together with another one, and you make one word. And then you put that word, that small word, with another word, and you make a sentence. And then after a sentence, you have a fiqra, a paragraph. And then after that, you have a hiwar. But it starts off with one small thing. And that's what it means about ta'allum. Knowledge is gained by ta'allum. You're not going to get knowledge in one whole leap. You know, you learned everything in one whole long step. Just like if you tried to walk in here by only taking 2 steps, you'd have fell on your face. Fair?
No.
Is that fair or not,
No.
guys? I'm not here to talk to myself. No. I can stand in front of the board and not get any response. But I want you guys to engage me. So, knowledge has to be understood that you get it by studying one issue at a time. And that's what everybody has to understand. It's not getting a whole bunch of stuff at one time. One issue at a time. And when you get that one issue, that's that one 30-inch step. And then you take another 30-inch step. And then you put those things together when you're dealing with something. Sometimes people come to us and say, where did you get that from? When you give a fatwa or something, or futya about something, where did you get it? Say, well, it would take a month and a year for me to explain it to you. Because it's so many steps that you have put together to come up with that conclusion. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So here in this class, each one of what I have developed here is a technique to teach you one lesson at a time. That lesson is considered a step. Since we only have one day out of the week, I give you something that you can work with for the rest of the week. And your job is to memorize, because we internalize when we memorize. So sometimes the meaning in something, in a poem, is found through the memorization of that poem. So, last week, we gave you a poem. It was the introduction. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We're going to recite it together. Let's go. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Tafseeru 101 is what we're going to do. We're going to break each surah down
for every one of you.
from whence it came, its length and name, its placement, and just to learn Quran for Muslims learning
all around.
Okay, let's do it again. You guys a little bit lower so they're going too fast for them. Tafseeru 101
Is what we're going to do. We want to break each surah down for every one of you. From whence it came, its length and name.
Don't stop mumbling. From whence it came,
Its length and name,
Its placement and just what it claims.
its placement, and just what it claims. Why? To learn Quran and pass it
down
for Muslims learning.
all around.
Okay, so we have to understand that. That's your first lesson. You have to internalize it by memorizing it. Whether you have to write it 1,000 times, whether you have to say it 100,000 times, that's what you have until the last week to do. Now we're going to test you. Ustad Nu'ayman, start picking people out of the class. Every 2 men, pick 1 lady. Set up a chair or something over here and test each person as much as you can. Take the guys over there. Whoever he takes goes, gets tested, comes back. I want their name and how they did, okay? Now, if they didn't do good, write that there so we can keep record, okay? Because a lot of times people say we're not learning from these things. What you put in is what you get out, okay? Does that make sense, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so now this week's lesson, this week's mission is I want to lay out for you guys a table of contents, just so you guys can understand where we're going with this. We have taken into consideration Ramadan is on our heels, okay? Now the Hufaz started last month, okay, reviewing, getting ready for Ramadan. To me, it feels like Ramadan's already here, because of the things we have to get ready for Ramadan. All other people, you should start thinking about taking your time off and those things like that. Don't give them a lot of time, Noemin. Hit it and get them going back to the class. So I don't want to set people up to forget, because what happens, we come to Ramadan, then afterwards the class is gone. Nobody shows up till after Ramadan. No one shows up again because of Ramadan. This is your table of contents right here. We've already done 1 week, and it's the introduction. Now, I only give copies of the poem to 1 person in this class. Now, I will be giving you the explanation, the sharh, after you've memorized it clear, so that you can look at something at that. But the poem itself, I want you to write it down yourself, okay? Because I think that us Westerners have a lack of appreciation for this type of thing. We get it online, we don't study it. We just think we have it, because we have it memorized in our book or on our phone. The first chapter is the introduction. You've already done that. The second one is defining. Please say what I say. Defining the word Quran. Third week is what is Tafseer?
What is Tafseer?
The makeup of the Quran.
The makeup of the Quran.
The 5th chapter, dividing the Quran
Dividing the Quran
into sections and or parts.
and or parts.
6, describing Meccan surahs.
Describing Meccan surahs.
7, 20 Madani surah. 20 Madani surah.
20 Madani surah.
8. I'm gonna move out the way. Number 4 is the makeup of the Quran.
Makeup of
The makeup, number 4, the makeup of the Quran. Number 8 is the 12 surahs of Ikhtilaf. The 12.
The 12 surahs of Ikhtilaf.
And number 9, the 7 themes of the Quran.
The 7 themes of the
Of
Quran.
the Quran.
Ramadan break.
Ramadan break.
And then when we come back, we start with the isti'adah, the basmalah, and we start doing the surah. Okay, so, yes ma'am. Oh no, your left hand, I can't see. I'm not recognizing the left hand. That means you have bad intentions for me. Go ahead, please.
Can you read from 5 down?
I'm going to read from the top.
Okay, Zakallah.
Number 1, introduction.
Number,
Number 2, defining the word Quran.
defining the word Quran.
Say it loud and clear, men, so the ladies can hear you.
Defining the word Quran.
Number 3, what is tafseer?
What is tafsir?
Not so fast, not so fast. Number 4, the makeup of the Quran.
The makeup of the Quran.
Number 5, dividing the Quran into sections and or parts.
Dividing the Quran into sections and or parts.
Number 6, describing Meccan surah.
Describing Meccan surah.
Number 7, 20 Medani surah.
20 Medini surah.
Can I go forward? Number 7, 20 Medani surah.
20 Medini surah.
Number 8, the 12 surah of Ikhtilaf.
Number 8, the
12 surah of Ikhtilaf.
The 12 surah of Ikhtilaf.
The 12
12 surah of Ikhtilaf.
Along the senior scholar staff. Number 9, the 7 themes of the Quran.
The 7 themes of the Quran.
The 7 themes of the Quran.
The 7 themes of the
This is
Quran.
what we want to get to before Ramadan starts, okay? Insha'Allah. This is our intention. Insha'Allah. This is what we're going to do. You guys ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
If
sir.
you're not ready, yes?
You mentioned the issue of timing for class.
Okay, the question, I came up with this idea. We have ladies in the class. We want ladies to keep coming in the classroom as well. And we know that ladies don't like to be out at nighttime as well. And we have some young men in the classroom as well. I see that the salah is getting later. My suggestion was, can we make the class at 7 p.m. as the salah keeps getting later, and then, you know, if that would be suitable for everyone to come in, because we definitely need Hanif to come in, Abdul Kareem, anybody who's coming off work. Can we make it 7? Is that okay, everybody? Let's go around the room. All in favor? 7 p.m.
Till Maghrib?
No, not necessarily to Maghrib, because Maghrib comes in at 7:30 something, right? Or no, what time, whatever Maghrib comes in. Well, right now, it's that, but what's it going to be next week and the week after that? So if we have to stop and then continue somewhat to get an hour in at that time, then we do, and I can take the children home and everything. But then as soon as the Maghrib gets close to 8, then we just do it all before the Salah time. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
So it'll be broken up a little bit at first, but in the long run, we'll have consistency. And it'll be easier for everybody to go home and get to sleep so we can get up for Fajr.
Okay, so everybody agrees.
No?
I'm ready.
MashaAllah. Ladies, is that agreeable with you all? Yes. Okay, what about you, brothers?
No, that's
You-
not.
Get your hand down, boy. Everybody's good? Okay, alhamdulillah. Rabbil Alameen. Okay. Can I erase this, ladies and guys?
Yes.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
no, what?
yes, yes.
See, problem is here, listen, we shouldn't say yes, sir. Okay? Sometimes when I'm talking to young people, it's like pulling teeth to say yes, sir, no, sir, no. We have to exemplify that. Okay? It shouldn't be a difficult, especially most of us, anybody who's 50 and older, that's what you said all the time, right? When we were growing up, if you didn't, you got smacked. Sometimes we called you Mr. Sir. So I know that my father said, hey, Mr. Sir, if you don't know his name is Mr. Sir. Okay? So we have to exemplify that, you know? So we're not ready yet, so let's go. So the first, this chapter here that we're doing today is defining the word Quran. As he's writing, I'm going to recite it for you. The word Quran linguistically, when broken down methodically, means reading or
recited piece
by most of those who dare
to teach.
It's reached us in its through massive chains still carried on. The Arabic speech of Allah revealed to
Ibn Abdullah.
its words and meanings both preserved in Mus'haf form gone
Understood.
a standing challenge for all time for those who claim.
It's Tafseeru.
And this is the technical meaning, the technical definition of the word Quran. So let's break it down. The word, when you finish, raise your hand so I can know that I can change this and write it on the board. Okay, I know that you guys are finishing. He's over here. You sure? The word Quran linguistically.
The word Quran linguistically.
So the first thing we have to understand is the definition of a word from its linguistic. Linguistically means literally. Okay? Not urfiyan, not even shar'iyan, not as mustalahan. The word Quran linguistically. So urfiyan would be the, like I said, what's up? That's colloquial. What normal people say. It doesn't have the literal meaning. It has a colloquial meaning. Okay? Then we say the word as a terminology in the Sharia, like the word salah. It's a literal term. We're not using the literal meaning. We're using the term as the salah or zakat and these types of things. We're talking about the word when it has its literal meaning. The word Quran linguistically,
The word Quran linguistically.
when broken down methodically,
When broken down methodically.
what does methodically stand for?
Step by step.
Step by step, scientifically, okay, following some type of design, okay, some type of organized design. No, do him later, because he's got to hop around. Nah, he's going to disturb you. Take one of these other guys over here. We can get him later, okay? When broken down by step, okay, means reading or
Reciting.
that's what it is. The word qara'a is to read. Quran exemplifies that thing which is read or that thing which is recited. By who? By most of those
Who
dare
dare
to
to
teach.
teach.
Why do we say most of those?
because not all of those.
The word Quran, that speak.
The word Quran.
No. I want to hear what he said.
Because there are some scholars who break it down from the root qarana,
Qarana, which means what?
like a corner.
Corner.
And how does that mean? Where's two parts meet? What does that mean now? How do you understand that? How do we understand qarana being one of the meanings of the Quran? Or as a dissenting opinion? Because when you have law, you have the opinion and you have the dissenting opinion, the majority and the dissenting. The dissenting opinion sometimes is strengthened. Okay, so how do we look at that when we say most of those, jamhur, the orthodox opinion of what the word Quran means is reading or recited piece by most of those who
Dare to teach.
dare to teach. And those who dare to teach must never cease to learn. This is the rule. And we learn that early in our days as Tulab al-Ilm. When we learned Ibn Abdul Barr, when he explained how to be a scholar, he says if you stop studying, then you're the most ignorant person you know. Okay? So, those who dare to teach, meaning the scholars. Okay? Now, other people said that the word Quran means qarana, where what meets there. So what's meeting in the Quran?
Well, are the prophets and messengers.
The prophets or their message?
The message.
Their message. Their message, piece by piece, is delineated step by step in the Quran until it comes together, because each one of them came with one piece that we see about, that has lasted. Okay? And then when we get to Islam, it encompasses all of that and then some. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So even though that's the dissenting opinion, it has strength in lending the meaning, being correct. That the Quran, when we investigate and look at it, it does bring forth the It does bring forth the prophets and their messages. Okay? All the way till we get to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So let's memorize the word Quran linguistically.
Word Quran linguistically,
When broken down,
methodically,
methodically, means reading.
means reading,
Can finish it for me.
or recited
Or
piece,
recited piece.
Or recited piece. Is it I before E here, or is it E before I? By most of those
By
most of those who dare to teach.
who dare to teach.
Dare to teach.
It's I before
No,
E?
it's app for you.
Okay.
Except when something like A here, as a neighborhood.
Well, I used to work on Wall Street, and they used to have these meetings that we used to have. When I first came to the States from studying, I was in New York, so they have these big CEO meetings, and you think, hey, Wall Street, they would do these presentations. The first thing they would say, spelling don't count, okay? Because they're riding real fast, and they're getting stuff up there for you to understand. And that's a good rule, you know? As long as you get it, you get the point. Ours is an oral tradition anyway, okay? We memorize, right? We pass it down linguistically, orally. It means reading or recited piece by most of those who
Dare to teach.
It's reached us.
Through its purest form, massive change still carried on.
It's reached us in its
Purest form.
purest forms. How? Through massive chains,
Still carried on.
still carried on. Let's talk about that for a second, okay? So we know that it means reading or recited teach by most of those who've dared to teach. It's reached us in its purest form. What does that mean? It's reached us in its purest form. Sheikh Misbah.
Yes, I'm taking.
Sorry?
I'm taking this notes.
Oh no, what does it mean?
Uh,
Not wise.
That one.
If someone says, what do you say?
Not wise.
Not wise.
Uh-oh, I wasn't here for the class last time.
What does it mean? Somebody tell me what it means. It reached us in its purest form.
As it was revealed.
Don't give me your left hand, son. Give me your right hand. Yes, sir.
Unchanged.
Unchanged. Because pure is something that has been untouched, right? Nothing has been added to it, right? You got yes or no, guys?
Yeah.
If something is added to it, then it's no longer pure. Okay?
Nah. Yes, sir.
So it's reached us in its purest form. We take the Musaf that they found in Uzbekistan about 2 decades ago, right? When they found an old Quran that the Russians had taken from the Ottomans during World War II. And this Quran goes back, I think to the 4th century or something like that. And they took it. And now we got it out of the museum. I think it was in the 90s they took it out. They checked it with the Quran publishing in Medina. As you go towards the airport, they have that Quran publishing place. Is that Mecca? It's in Medina. Yeah, it's going out in Medina now. I gotta get my mind right. And it was word for word, letter for letter, harf by harf, the exact same Mus'haf. Now that's, amazing for someone who converts to Islam, and we have how many versions of the Bible?
Can't count.
And not one of them has an original. No, there's no
original text.
There's no original text. And there's so many versions, but the Quran, it's reached us, meaning it has been preserved through massive chain, not through one chain. How many chains?
Massive.
What does massive mean? Many. So many that you cannot count them. What are these massive chains? What does that mean, massive chains?
It's next.
Not just generation down generation, but what? How many people, different routes. Okay, they say when you learn something, you run one track to your memory. You meet somebody, you have one track to your memory about that person. Okay? Then you meet them someplace else, you have another track. You meet them somewhere else, another track. So those little thin fibers become really strong. Okay, because you remember some same thing when you get introduced to something. We have so many different routes that the Quran has come through that it's impossible that the people could have gathered together and invented this thing on their own. And no one's got it mixed up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it says, through massive change still carried on. Read it, guys.
Massive change still carried on.
When you say it, it comes out your mouth, your ears hear it, your heart hears it. The intellect that we have, a lot of people think that their intellect is where? Where's your intellect?
In the brain.
Your brain. No, that's your ego. Okay? Seriously, it's your ego. What was the first thing created?
Your heart.
Your heart. What happens when the baby is born? We go to the doctor. We don't hear nothing. The heart. And the whole body is formed around the heart. Right. That's right. A lot of times they have hearts. They have hearts. And they're not using them to have any fiqh. Fiqh is profound understanding. Fiqh is understanding things the way they were intended. Allah says in every juz of the Quran that He's talking to your heart. He ain't talking to your head. Fi qulubihim maradun. Right? He said, Khatam Allahu ala qulubihim. These are the issues that doesn't allow them to understand anything. So when you speak, you're close and you're saying it, your heart hears you. It hears you and it's understanding what you're saying. So I'm telling you to say this out loud so that you can hear yourself and understand yourself better. Capiche?
Kaposh.
All right. So let's go. Through massive change still carried on. What does that mean, still carried on? We're still doing it now. Ibn Taymiyyah says in his Fatawa, translated, it means this is from the Madhannatul Muslimin. Some of the things you expect to see from the Muslims. You expect to see their children memorizing the Quran, just like you expect to see henna on the hands of the woman and kufis on the heads of the men. These are the things that you expect, just like you expect to see certain things from the kuffar, you expect to see certain things from the Muslims. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is still carried on. Our job, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told us that there's going to come a time where the whole Quran is raised up. Not by it disappearing from your hearts and heads. By what? The death of the people that know it. So we can say, not on my shift. It won't be forgotten on my shift. How come? By us memorizing it. That's what we can do. So at least we know we did our job. What is our job? وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. To pass on the legacy of learning it, teaching it to others, and inspiring them to embody it and teach it to the ones that come under them. And this is the chain that was still carried out. That's what our job is. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay. It's reached us in its purest forms. Through massive change still carried on. Come on, man. I'm raising my voice. Knock me down. Motivate me. It's reached us in its purest forms.
Through massive change still carried on.
Through massive change still carried on.
Through massive change still carried on.
The Arabic speech of Allah.
The Arabic speech of Allah.
Speech of Allah.
Speech of Allah.
Now, this is something that is very clear. The Arabic speech of Allah. Initially, people had problems with this. Well, I can't learn it in English? No, you cannot learn it in English. Allah said, what's the first word revealed?
Iqra.
Iqra. What does that mean?
Read.
Does it only mean read?
That's right.
No, there's more to it than that. Iqra, there's a taqdeeru kalam, an implied speech. If I say, can you hear me? What do you say?
Yes.
Did you just say one word? Yes?
Yes.
Or did you imply with that, yes, I can hear you?
Yes, I can hear you.
You see, so there's always an implied speech in any language, right? So what is the implied speech when someone says, when Allah said, Iqra? The first thing is read it in the language that I revealed it, right? He didn't say read, he said Iqra. If he wanted it to be read in English, what would he have said?
Read.
Read. He would have sent it down in English. So in order to do something is in order to do what?
Learn.
To do the things that you need to do. Allah says, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ. What do you have to do before you offer salah?
Get knowledge.
So in order to offer salah, you have to what? Make wudu, put on clean clothes, find a clean area, right?
Nah.
Same thing, in order to read this, then you have to do what? Learn enough Arabic to read it. And is it just to read it? And to understand it. Is it just to read it and understand it? And to apply it. So the order Iqra is a lot of words there. We see ourselves as the epitome of the Muslim. I am Muslim. Woo! But we haven't even followed the first order. The first word. Iqra. And we act as if Arabic is this way difficult language that we can't understand. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I speak Spanish. I didn't go to school to speak Spanish. I just grew up in the hood. Well, not really the hood, but, you know, we grew up speaking Spanish. People were speaking Spanish. I learned Arabic in Japan. You get what you want. We have to accept, especially African Americans, have to accept that we've been institutionalized to think that language acquisition besides English is impossible. And we've bought that lie. And we furthered it by thinking, no, well, I don't need to learn Arabic. It's in English. No, it's not. What we read in English is someone else's opinion, someone else's version, someone else's angle of just one angle, the many various angles that come in the words in the Arabic language that you cannot compare because you're dealing with a strong language and you're turning it into a weaker language. It can't handle it. And it won't come out clearly. So we have to take a step back, accept that big H and handle it. It takes no more than 90 days to learn any language, to become fluent. Fluent meaning that you can understand enough to continue to learn that language in that language. That's all. But will we do that? And anybody says it is hard is lying about Allah. Allah says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِذِكْرِ. I have already, he said, وَلَقَدْ, and in Tafseer it means wallahi. Allah swear by himself, I have already made the Quran easy to remember. فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ? But is there anybody that's going to take advantage of that? So that's what we have to understand. The Quran is the Arabic speech of Allah. That means the Quran is not like our speech. The speech of Allah is alive. Okay? And it's not like normal human speech. The speech of Allah is tied to Allah. And so that's the difference about that speech. It won't settle for less. You can't trick someone into memorizing the Quran. You can't trick Allah into memorizing his words. See, when kuffar, when they want to pray, they pray and they act like they're praying to Allah. They think they're praying to Allah. When they read their book, they think they're reading the words of Allah. See, we know when we want Allah to talk to us, and that's a miracle. We just read the Quran and we're hearing the literal speech of Allah. And that has a different effect. You're reading it, but it's actually reading you. Reading you, telling you who you are and what you could do and all these different things like that. So, we have to understand the Arabic speech of Allah revealed to?
Ibn Abdullah.
Revealed to?
Ibn Abdullah.
Abdullah. Who is Abdullah? Ibn Abdullah. Who is implied here?
Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Muhammad ibn Abdullah. No one else. Not Muhammad. What's the guy's name? Elijah Muhammad. Not Elijah Muhammad. Not anybody else. Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Okay? Revealed to Ibn
Abdullah.
Its words and meaning both preserved. Can I erase this part up here?
Yeah.
Its word and meanings both preserved in okay, I'll make it bigger. Let me erase all of this. Recite it, guys. Its words and meanings.
Its words and meanings.
Its words and meanings.
Words and meanings.
Both preserved.
Both preserved.
Who preserved it?
Allah.
And this is important. See, for all this, what I'm saying here, you guys know the proof. For your homework, write the ayah. That's the proof that its words and meanings are both preserved. You can say it. Say it. They still gonna have to look for it. Go ahead. Say it out loud. No, not me.
We certainly will reveal it and we are going to preserve it. وإنا نحن نزلنا الذكر وإنا له لحافظون.
Louder.
وإنا نحن نزلنا الذكر وإنا له لحافظون.
Okay. Allah says that He has sent it down, and He is taking the responsibility of what? Preserving it. Why is that important? That's important and unique for Islam because prior to that, when Allah sent down some revelation, what happened to it? It got twisted. It got, how do you say it? It was unpure. Right? People mix their own ideas in there. They have the Taubah, but then they turn around and make the Talmud is more important to them than the Taubah. And then we don't even have the Taubah. No, they have the Injil, and then they put the letters of Saul, Paul, and they use that as more important than actually the gospel of Isa ibn Maryam. And then books are lost and thrown away. Right? So this time Allah says, I'm going to preserve it. Why? Because this is the last time I'm speaking to you. Okay? وَمَا هُوَ بِالْهَزْلِ. And Allah says, and this ain't no joke. This is nothing to be taken lightly. قَوْلُ الْفَصْلِ. وَمَا هُوَ بِالْهَزْلِ. This is the last time. It's like when Mama used to say, y'all better be quiet. This is the last time I'm going to talk to y'all. Does that mean it's the last time she's going to come in the room?
Yeah.
But the next time, the shoe is coming off. Right? So Allah is threatening us. And whenever we get threatened, what is the first thing we do? We consider the threatener. Is this one possible to do something to me? Right? If somebody said to you when you're small, 3 o'clock, you think, well, I got 2 as well. You thought about it. Can this guy beat me up? Do I have anything to be worried about? Now, when we're dealing with Allah, we know. Sometimes we water down the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because for whatever reasons, I don't know why people want to do that. Maybe they think if they water it down, people will easily accept it. But I don't think so. Allah knows better. He sent it down in that particular way. Leave it as it is. Allah's threatening the person. And maybe that threat will make a person change. So, its words and meanings both preserved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Mus'haf form, in Mus'haf form, gone undisturbed.
Gone undisturbed.
A standing challenge for all time. And again, this puts the Mus'haf, you have to put like a line between this. So you don't say Mushaf. In English, we have the SH, so sometimes we get mixed up. So put a line between it, Mus'haf. And note, I put a capital H when it's a ha, and a capital S when it's a saw. Mus'haf. Please? Mus'haf. It's important to understand terminology as opposed to what people get used to. We call the book the Quran. It's not technically the Quran. It's a Mus'haf. Does everybody understand that? We call it, pass me the Quran. That's incorrect. That's our own jahiliyyah. That's on our own ignorance. The proper term for that is Mus'haf. When we recite, that's the Quran. Does everybody understand that?
Yeah.
You can say book of
You can say Kitab al-Qira'ah, Quran, but I'm saying technically what we call it, Quran, this is Urfiyya. Technically,
Allah says, إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ فِي كِتَابٍ.
The Quran is in the Kitab. But then people say, well, the pages, and there was this big argument, the story of Bukhari. The easy thing around that is say, hey, look, it's a Mus'haf, or a Mishaf, or a Mashaf. Those are all terms for that particular book. Do you want to continue with the ignorance, or you want to learn something new and something that's supposed to be and put things in their proper place? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if we constantly just stick to what is being done and not alter ourselves to do what is correct, then what's the benefit of the truth? Does anybody understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. So in mushaf form, going undisturbed. And I mention this because a lot of people read the Quran through their phones and through their applications. And I'm not totally against those things. I'm not totally, I said totally, but I am somewhat against it. Get a mushaf. Open the mushaf. There's more barakah in reading it from the mushaf. It's better for your eyes too. You know, looking at that thing, I know sometimes in the middle of the night, or at the end of the day, when I take off my glasses and I try to look at it, I'm blinded by that screen. I can't really read it that well. And I know if that's the case for me, it's probably the case for other people as well, you know? But when you read the book, you know, it's good. And that's why the pages are different colored, because white pages are harder on the eyes, and you can't read as long on white papers and you can on brown and different shaded pages. You see, the best books have like a beige color to them, the pages, because you can read longer in that regard. So as a teacher, you learn those little tricks, so you get 30 more minutes in reading if the pages are brown. So I'll pay extra $10 for a book that has better pages than one that has white pages where I can't read that long, because the eyes literally get tired, okay? And you see the wisdom of that in almost every mushaf. The pages are brown, unless it's an inexpensive copy of the mushaf. Follow me, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so in mushaf form, gone undisturbed. I tell you a story. When I went to Mauritania, only qira'ah I ever knew was Hafs and Asim. I didn't even know there was another qira'ah. Okay? I mean, who knows that if you're raised here? You only hear Hafs and Asim, especially back in those days. So I was in Mauritania and no one knew Hafs and Asim. I had a mushaf from America. I had a mushaf and I was reading, and an old man came to me and said, "What are you doing, young man?" And he took the book and he said, "A'udhu billah." He took out a pen. He said, "Man, where'd you get this from?" And I said, "From America." He said, "Man, so maybe some Jews, they're trying to print these Quran, and put in this stuff, and it's a mistake." You know, and he started to make it. Then I said, "Give back the mushaf." We start pulling on it, you know, and we go over to the imam, because he had never experienced this type of qira'ah in the book form before. Of course, the imam knew what it was and everything and explained and everything, but that's how I started reciting Warsh, because there was no one there to teach me, to continue me in Hafs at that time. And I was resistant at first. What are you talking about? New qira'ah? What kind of bid'ah is this? You know, you come in and everything. And they took me to the library, and the library had a small table with books of biographies of all the famous people, like little small books, better than comic books, but reading books. So you have one of Imam Malik, Ahmed, Abu Hanifa, you know, the different Imma, and other than that. And when you read it, it would tell you the stuff about that person. So he said, well, look at Imam Malik, and you go to it, and there's a section, his qira'ah, Warsh and Nafi. I said, oh, subhanAllah. Then when you go to Imam Ahmed's book, it says he was asked what was his famous qira'ah. It said Warsh and Nafi. And his least favorite, Hafsa, Al-Khalaf and Hafs, Al-Hamza. You know, it was stated, he said, I said, man, I didn't even know this. So then I had to start learning these different qira'at, and they won me over when I saw so many different imma of the past knew this issue of qira'ah. Okay? And so we started to learn these different qira'ah, and now that is one of the things that has preserved the Quran, the different qira'ah. And when the colonizers came, what they tried to do is limit the region to one qira'ah, because then anything besides the one that they allowed, you were seen as being, an enemy of their order. And the only place that it was really preserved, all the qira'ah, was Egypt. That was left to blossom with the qira'ah. You know, one of those places you go to Tanta, and the cab drivers reciting in different qira'ah, because that's the place for them. You know, that's what they're known for. Okay? A Shatabiya is easy amongst them. Just like you go to Mauritania and everybody knows Ibn Malik. You know? Alfiya is a normal thing. Every place has its different type of thing. So now, alhamdulillah, we're in the age where the qira'ah is getting more play again. It's getting back to where it's supposed to be, where people are familiar. They can hear the different qira'ah in the salawat. If you're paying attention to the salah, he recited two different qira'ah in one raka'ah and then the other. So we start to get the flavor, and then you're not just asleep in the Quran. Allahu Akbar. But then you hear something new, you're alive, you get to follow that, especially if you did your job and learned some Arabic. Okay, that's enough for tonight. That's good. We tested enough people. Jazakallah khair. So, its words and meanings both preserved.
Words and meanings both preserved.
In Mus'haf form gone undisturbed.
In Mus'haf form gone undisturbed.
A standing challenge for all times.
A standing challenge for all time.
For those who claim it's just a rhyme.
Those who claim it's just rhyme.
Okay? This is a challenge for anybody to make up something like the Quran. And one of the things you notice about kuffar, when they can't face a particular challenge, they ignore it. They act like it doesn't exist. Okay? That's why they haven't come. If they thought they could do this or haven't tried it privately, they would be out there saying, oh, we made a new Quran just like, but they know they can't deal with this, so they ignore it. They don't even do anything about it. Well, which is good. Alhamdulillah, because it would confuse some people nowadays. You know? So, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Now, why is this important for us to know this definition? How is that going to help me when we're talking about, what did we come here to study?
Tafseer.
What does tafseer mean? That's next week's message. Fassara yufassiru tafseer from ilmu.
Tafseeru.
Okay, so that's going to be the next lesson. We're going to talk about what the word tafseer is. First, if we're going to do tafseer of the Quran, which basically means explaining and understanding the meaning of the Quran, the first word we need to understand the meaning of is the word Quran. Is that correct? We have to define it.
Yeah.
And the problem is we've skipped steps a lot of time because I'm smart. You know, that's the mentality. I know there are prerequisites, but not for me. I can just jump to the 13th chapter. And this has injured us because it hasn't allowed us to learn in a stair-step fashion, okay, and go anywhere. We should have as many people in here as many teachers in here. Everybody becoming an expert in one particular thing. I've many times said that we should not hire somebody to come in from somewhere else and pay them $5,000 and fly them over here and put them up and do all this when we got 30 men who each one can take a day. And how much honor and izzah and dignity when your friend or your brother comes up and they lead the salah for that particular night in Ramadan and the wife said, that's my husband. Okay? Lower your gaze, sister. You know? And the boys too. They say, when I get up, I'm going to take the 13th day, like my father had the 13th day. It gives them something. We can't say we want these young boys to be coming to the masjid and to be Muslims if we don't exemplify that. One of the oldest things we learned from what was that? Noble Drew Ali, you have to be that which you want others to be. You have to exemplify what you want the next generation to be. And if we don't, they know we faking because we ain't doing nothing. If they never see you memorizing in the Quran and exemplifying it, they're not going to do it. For what example do they have? And the men, we spend all our money on classes for this one, classes for the ladies, classes for the kids, which is a bad term. Ismu kufr ba'd al-iman. They're called children kids. They're children. And maybe if we call them that, they'll act like children instead of kids, which is a term that was initially used for mass murdering teenagers. The most famous of them? Billy the Kid. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This is what his names are. What do we call them? Street kids who act like goats, breaking people's antennas off their cars, throwing rocks and busting windows. They were kids. But now we call our children that and wonder what's wrong with them. Whatever you call something, it lives up to it or lives down to it. Why are we breaking over people calling each other niggas if it's no big deal what you call someone? But we don't exemplify. We're not thinking. Or maybe we are. We're using our ego as opposed to our heart. So again, if you want to see some real change, you have to change. Even if you can't do the whole night, you can do 2 raka'ah. And then the imam take over for the rest of the night. Be the muqaddimah or be the khatim. Be the beginning or the end. But get in where you fit in. Now everybody has some skin in the game. Now we use our time differently. Now your child will see you memorizing to get that point. It don't gotta be as sweet as al-husri. Your own sincerity is gonna bring out the heart of that. That's the beauty of the Quran. And what's the ruling of imitating someone anyway? In the qira'ah, it's makruh. When we memorize the Quran, you're supposed to find your voice. Find your voice. Be you. Not that we don't learn the rhythm and imitate our teachers as much as we can, because then it helps us learning in our tajweed and the pronunciation, these things. But eventually, your flavor has to be the one that you savor. That's your mind in there. And that only comes with knowing the meanings of the words. Having a profound understanding of the Quran. So if you're not willing to do anything, then get out the class. Because it's a waste of time. Knowledge does not benefit if you're not going to multiply it by action. Because true knowledge demands action. If we knew this place was on fire, what would we do? We would run. We would get out of here. That knowledge would demand us to leave because we can see, smell, and feel the fire. So anything else like that, knowledge that we're learning, what are you going to do with it? How is it going to enhance your day-to-day? That becomes the question. Now we come here, hopefully you're motivated. But let this motivation lead to some positive action. Insha'Allah ta'ala. You have to know this because this is the book that we claim that we want to learn. The word Quran linguistically, when broken down,
methodically,
means reading or
reciting peace.
And that's important because that tells us what we're supposed to be doing with it. We're supposed to be reading it or reciting it. The ruling of not reciting the Quran and finishing it within 2 months. Anybody got that? We say, who says they follow the Salaf? Everybody's saying, we got these imposter Salafi people now, right? They've been going around terrorizing the whole English world for the last 10, 15 years, right? Perpetrating the fraud. You off it, Akhi. I see you rolled up your legs. You know, no class. I remember Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, and see. No class, no dad. In this regard. And half the time, they're wrong. But now, here we are now, what are we going to do? The word, we're supposed to be the Salaf. They used to read the Quran, most of them, and finish it, how often? How quickly? No, that's the least of it. How quickly? What was it?
3 days.
No, not most of them. A very few of them would finish it in 3 days. That's a select view. A select view for people. How quickly would the most of them finish it?
1 week. 1 week.
No, 1 week. 7 days. Most of them, we're talking about thousands of them, would finish the Quran in 7 days. So someone comes up to you and tells you, I'm on the Sunnah, I'm Salafi, I'm super Salafi. Or say, be Salafi in the Quran then. Finish it every week. That'll give them some time to shut up. Okay? Because if you ever tried it, it takes a lot of time. Okay? Now that's most of us. Most of us now, we live by the 45-second minute. Right? We don't got no time to wait for 60 seconds. Because of the microwave and instant on the press button on the machine, the TV, I forgot what they call it.
Remote.
No, what's the thing? The computer. When you have fast download or some DS, whatever this thing is called. When you hit it and it instantly downloads. What's that? Fast streaming. But they have this like extra fast thing. Forget it. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? This has made people impatient. Now, so I don't suggest that anybody here try to read the Quran and finish it in 7 days. But let's go through this. The Salaf, we're talking about the Sahaba, Tabi'een, Atba'a Tabi'een, and all of those that came after them, the best of this ummah, they would consider it sinful if 2 months, 60 days passed by and you had not finished a reading of the Quran. Some of them did it in 7 days. Some of them did it in 10. Some of them did it every 2 weeks. Some of them did it every month. Some of them did it in the least of it was in 60 days. You know how much pages that is a day? 10 pages a day. If you do 2 pages after every salah, you'll be finished. 2 pages. But if let's say you don't got time for that, do 5 pages in the morning, 5 pages in the evening. Do a couple of pages throughout the day. 10 pages a day.
But if you are memorizing,
If you're memorizing, you should recite more because it's called muraja'ah. The difference between the hafidh and the mutahafidh, there are a few differences. One of them is that one of the things that's the same is they both have to do muraja'ah. Okay? The sin of someone who memorizes the Quran and forgets it is heavy on the head of the hafidh. Because of criminal negligence, he gets his head smashed in the grave. One of the angels takes a rock and smashes his head. It rolls away, head comes back together, he smashes it again. So the one who's a hafidh or mutahafidh, he's conscious of this. So he's never criminally negligent of the Quran. And he recites more than that in a day. Bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what I'm challenging you guys, you want to change your life? The thing that's going to change your life the most is the Quran. Whenever there was a problem with the Prophet and his companions, what did Allah do? Reveal Quran. And that was to lift up their heart. The ulama have said, the thing that will increase your iman the most and the quickest is the Quran. Because it's introspective. It reads you. It tells you about you. Everybody personally. Every day, every different angle. And you never get tired of it. And then Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, لَوْ طَهَرَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. If they would just purify their heart, they would never get tired from reading the book of Allah. Every week we say it's the best thing. خَيْرُ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ. Show and prove it then. If you really believe that, then you would look up that more than you look up and see who wrote you on WhatsApp. And somebody's download to some picture that you think you're going to get some benefit out. Because that's why we look at that, for benefit. This has the most benefit. So if you want to change your life right now, start reading 10 pages a day. That's it. See where you're at in 2 months. Okay? Al-Hillu wa-Rihla. The journey, and then starting all over again. 10 pages a day. Simple as that. And you will begin to see a change immediately. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. That's why we have to know this. The word Quran linguistically, when broken down, means reading or reciting piece by most of those. It's reached us in its, come on, read your papers, guys. It's reached us in its through a massive change. The Arabics revealed by its words and meanings, both preserved in Mus'haf form one, a standing challenge for all time for those who claim
it's just around.
You have to next week to memorize that. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم جزاكم الله خير.
Oh, yeah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله